Glenn has a note that he originated when he sold his investment home in Newport Richey. The reason I know Glenn, he's a friend of mine from church, and I helped him to actually create that note. He was trying to sell the house. He was having trouble. I said, Glenn, why don't you do seller financing? You'll get something instantly. He says, I don't know how. I said, well, I'll just mark it for you, and I put it on Craigslist. And we got him a buyer. It was an attorney and his wife, and they couldn't, his tax returns didn't look quite right. So he had the money. He had plenty of money. It was an expensive home. And right away, he sold it right away, and he was so excited, and he did seller financing. But Glenn got cancer, and he had cancer twice, and he beat it twice. But now Glenn would like to have some money to do some of the things that he thinks he ought to do, because he doesn't really have this vision that he's going to live 20 more years. I think he thinks he's going to live 5 more years, and he'd like to have that money. He doesn't want to wait 28 years to get the rest of his money, because there's no balloon on this particular note. So, Gary, the buyer, has been paying faithfully. Gary is the attorney, he and his wife. He's been paying faithfully on this note for 2 years. He's been late 3 times, I think, but every time he was late, he called up and said why, and there was always a real, truly good reason. He beats cancer twice, yeah, okay. So now he wants better cash. He thinks he's got a deal where he can make better money. So it's that time value of money. You know, that time value of money I thought was just a philosophic phrase. It's a real thing, the time value of money. And he realized that he could make better use of that money if he had it right now. He could do something with it. So I tell Glenn I'll find someone who'll make him a good offer. I don't know how. And I begin looking on the internet to find people who buy paper, because that's what I've heard. Because as I was a real estate trainer, I knew about notes. Knowing about notes is not the same as doing notes, but I would teach people about notes. Yeah, there's notes. That's about the sum total of what I knew about it. There are notes. That's better. Some people don't know that there are notes, right? So I tell him I'm going to find it. So he goes on the internet and he starts calling the people, the internet sites that you've told us people have, you know, and they offered him really ridiculously low figures, like 50% of, not 50% discount, but 50%, yeah, 50% discount. They wanted to discount the actual note 50%. And he was like, no way, And he was not happy. So the next day, Gladys and I go to an investor group in Tampa, and they talk about Donna, and they say she's coming on Wednesday night, and she came and she talked for an hour, and it was like you call it as a God thing, you know, it was like instant love. I love this gal, and she's going to be here for Saturday for 8 hours, and I'm going to go pick her brain, and she was glorious. It was the best 8 hours, and isn't she? I mean, she's so natural and not trying to be a fancy schmancy speaker like so many on the training circuits are impressing you with what great speakers they are and how they have techniques to close you at the closing table. Well, she was just there teaching us. And it was like this abundance of data. And it was like, well, if she's given me that much information now, what in the world is she going to give me on these 4 days? And that's why we decided we were going to show up. So we just loved it, and we figured it was fate. So here we have her 8-hour lecture. That's how much knowledge we have, because she crammed a lot into that 8 hours. And we have her manuals. And we find out that the very best deal for Glenn is the one that Donna offers, because we bought the materials. Now we can submit deals to her, right? And her deal, of all the deals that I found, because we found several other deals, some of them were pretty good, Donna's was the best deal. That was amazing. It was so wonderful. So she calls up Glenn, and Glenn is a chatty Cathy, or a chatty Carl, whatever you want to call. And he could talk, and they talked, and she said, I can't do business with this guy.
I did. I don't want to work with him.
She said, I'm not doing it. Because he also is a smarty pants. He's a Mr. Know-it-all, and he's an engineer, and he thinks that he just knows everything about everything. And he's a wonderful man, by the way. He's the kindest, sweetest guy. But boy, he can talk, and he's a very highly opinionated, you know. And so she said, I can't do this. So, but we do the deal, and she talked to him, and he finally understood. He understood some things. He understood why the other people were offering him such low things. She explained to him. She said, well, here's why the offer is what it is. Your seller has really stinky credit, and in the note buying world, it doesn't give you the confidence that you need to move forward, even though you have a history of the payments, but his credit is so bad. Well, anyway, he started to get the idea of why he was getting these low offers. So our deal is his home value, his loan to value was pretty good, because his loan was only $232, and the house is now worth $281, which we just found out today. The appraisal came back, unlike that other deal where it came back exactly at $281. Yes! So the original note was $232,977. It was a 30-year fixed with no balloon. He didn't know anything about how to write. I mean, I took him to my attorney. I have a real estate attorney, helps me do all my transactions. I took him to him. I said, hey, David, do you know how to write notes and stuff for people who want to do seller financing? Of course I do. But he doesn't know what you know. He just knows how to make a note. So he didn't know what would make it an attractive note. So it was a 30-year fix and there's no balloon. But the payments are $1,384, and the present value of the note, and remember today I told you that I found out the present value by running an amortization schedule. There's a little app on there you can get for the iPhone, and it'll send you a printout of it. And I sent him, he'd never had an amortization schedule. I sent him a printout of his amortization. And the remaining payments, there's 342 remaining payments because Gary made 18 payments. So Donna offers $152, and Glenn says yes. Now, let's see, is that any good for Glenn? Well, Glenn got a $2,000 down payment. He got $24,912 because that's what he made from the payments he got, and he gets $152. So he gets $178,912. And you're thinking, well, yeah, but he sold the house for $232. Yeah, but he only put $120 into the house. He bought it at about $80, and he put in rehab, so he didn't have that much money into it. So now comes the ITV, right? The LTV may or may not be good, but the ITV was pretty awesome because he didn't have, I don't remember if he had 120 or 180 into it. So he bought and rented for $130. So he made almost a $49,000 profit. So is Glenn happy? You bet Glenn's happy. Here's what Donna got. Donna gets an income stream, if she chooses to keep this, she's got an income stream of 342 payments totaling $473,000. Now, the older you get, the more attractive that kind of looks, because you'd like to sit there and just receive, if you had 10 of those, you'd be making $4,000 or $5,000 a month. That'd be pretty nice if you guys, I'm old enough to be getting, Social Security and Medicare and all that, but I don't know that maybe 1 or 2% of y'all are going to be getting it. So that you are your Social Security. So that's a pretty nice Social Security, right? So, and that's an income stream that somebody else might like to buy from Donna. So she'll probably up her
rate of return,
her profit, or her yield is going to be even higher because we know that the attorney wants to refi. He wants to refi it as soon as he possibly can. He's only 15 points away from having a score that would allow him to do so. So the upside, since she paid the $152, the upside potential is $321, $328. Okay, so that's her upside potential. Pretty good. The realtor on our team. Oh, so that's the first deal. Now, do you want to say anything about that deal? Did I present it correctly?
Yes.
No, please.
Oh, you did an awesome job. Didn't she do an awesome job? But she's really selling herself short. I truly did say, I'm not doing business with this man. I really did, and I meant it. The guy, is my mic on? It seems like it's not. Can you? Okay. The man was a know-it-all. There was no reasoning with him. And I could tell that as I explained why it was this and why it was that, he wasn't buying anything. He knew more than I knew. And it's like you can't talk to somebody like that. But the reason that the deal went down was because Karen understood what I was saying. And Karen was friends of his. And she was able to present it to him. Didn't you tell me that you actually told him something about that I don't know, that he was being stubborn, or that you confronted him in
you
some
actually
way.
You're trying to put some glory over here, but honestly, she wrote me an email and said, here's what you should say to Glenn.
Oh, that's right, I did.
So if I have any glory, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of a giant, because there you go.
I want to look at that up and see what
she
I
sent
told
me
him.
an email, and she said, here's what you ought to say to Glenn. And I went back to him, and I told her, I practically read it off of the email and just spoke to him in that fashion. And he still didn't get it, but the next day, after he had slept on it, he called me up. He said, I get it. I get what you're saying, Karen. Let's do this. And I had we'd walked away from it and thought it was all done for.